Health Minister Zweli Mkhize has been lauding the media for its role in informing South Africans about the COVID-19 pandemic. To reflect on how the sector has dealt with reporting on the virus and its impact, I'm joined now via Skype by Thandi Smith. She's with Media Monitoring Africa. Thandi, always good to speak to you. So the world media basically had to learn on the job between March last year and where we are now. How would you say local journalists have fared in covering the COVID-19 pandemic?
You know, I think given the massive task at hand, and like you say, so many journalists, and not only unique to South Africa but around the world, had to learn to deal with this pandemic while reporting on it. And so I think the task was unprecedented for journalists. And so given the challenges that journalists already face, I think that we can safely say that journalists have done a really good job. You know, I think at times, you know, there's certain aspects that could have been better. We look at issues of representation and diversity and things like that, which I think as a sort of blanket look, you can, you know, always look to improve. But I think generally we have seen really good reporting coming out of the COVID pandemic.
And there's a great deal of worry about mis- and disinformation, or to speak colloquially, fake news. Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
Yes, you know, to be completely honest, we were prepared to see an influx of disinformation around COVID-19, and I think in some cases it was even worse than what we anticipated. The amount of disinformation and the amount of you know, disinformation, particularly around the regulations and advocating for people to not adhere to regulations, using disinformation to do just that, really circulated on almost all of our online platforms, including WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, you know, a number of social media sites, or social media platforms. The conspiracy theories, the hoaxes that we saw come out, and often the deliberate attempt to cause public harm by treating this as not a crisis, as something untrue and not real.
But what's the appeal of this sort of material? What makes fake news so believable for people who continue to share it to this day without question?
Well, I think we're dealing with the concept of a perfect storm for disinformation. We have a global crisis where there are a lot of unknowns. It's already causing a lot of panic. We're dealing with our public institutions that are already suffering from, you know, their own credibility issues and their own lack of trust with the public. And so when you have a public that doesn't necessarily completely trust your public institutions, with media credibility that's been at stake as well, all you have to do is sow that little bit of doubt in the public, and you have disinformation go viral. Disinformation plays on, you know, people's emotions. It plays on that clickbait. And so in a context like this, where emotions are already high, when you're dealing with very, very personal, difficult challenges, it really is the perfect storm. People take, you know, people use other people's vulnerable situations to their advantage. Financially, we've seen phishing scams taking place, dealing with COVID issues, and really it's often just for clickbait. And then often we do get that sort of more strategic, more deliberate, causing public harm, which we've seen as well.
Are the preventative measures working?
Well, I think that we can say that there has been some sort of impact on preventative measures. You know, the more accurate information that the media and public institutions do put out, the better, the more literacy there is around disinformation and false information, the more people become critically aware of how they consume information. So I think that has had some sort of impact. We've run the Real 411 platform where people can submit complaints and action gets taken around that content. And we've seen that happen. We've seen some impact. We've seen content being removed from that. So although I think disinformation isn't something you can just solve overnight, I do think that we have had some kind of impact in preventing some of the disinformation from going viral.
And it's one thing for organizations such as yourselves, Media Monitoring Africa, to flag issues that come up and take broadcasters, for example, to the BCCSA, have websites taken down. But government talked a good game at the beginning of the pandemic about how people would be jailed or fined for spreading misinformation during this time. To what effect has that actually been happening?
Well, in the very beginning, when the regulations came out, we did see action being taken against people that were deliberately disseminating disinformation. And I think, I'm glad you've raised this point, because I think many people have actually forgotten that that particular regulation is still in place under the state of disaster. I don't think we've seen this as much action being taken as we possibly thought, but it again shows how murky and how grey the area of disinformation is, and how you balance, false information with freedom of expression, which is there's a very fine line. And so I think we did see action being taken in the beginning. We saw people, being fined and being taken to task over spreading mis and disinformation. And I'm interested to see how that gets taken forward as well.